Hey, 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 and welcome to this week's edition of Terry Messenger's Genius Zone. Well, I've got something really exciting lined up because I'm about to bring on a woman who knows what it's like to go through a broken relationship. She knows what it's like to be out there in this world single and yet looking at the conventional ways that many people are now turning to the dating apps. She has a masterful presentation. She is an expert on being a coach for women, helping divorced women who are ready to find their soulmate, to find the love of their life, and to ditch all of their past patterns and really help them to connect with the right person and find love without all the apps. So if you are ready to hear this beautiful lady's secrets, her tips, her tricks, her coaching, empowerment tools, you are not going to want to miss this one. This is going to be a great one. Even for those who are struggling in your relationships, you are going to get so much out of this. Or if you're wanting to enhance your relationship, this is going to be a juicy, powerful interview. Because let's face it, our whole lives are about relationships, right? So with no further ado, I bring on the beautiful Bethany. Hi, Bethany. How are you?
Hey, Terry, I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm just really excited to be here with you today.
Well, I am so excited to, be here with you. And whereabouts are you?
So I'm in the United States. I'm up in Washington State in the Pacific Northwest, where it's rainy and green and beautiful.
Oh, lovely. I'm kind of picturing this beautiful rainforest almost, with those dewy green leaves and all of the things. So, Bethany Ann, do you like to be called Bethany Ann or Bethany?
Bethany is fine.
Okay, cool. So you are obviously very familiar with the typical scenarios of people that break up in relationships who are looking for their right partners, and they're obviously trying a lot of things like the dating apps and all of those things. Can you tell me where your first passion came from?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like a lot of us coaches, our passions are born out of our life experiences, right? And so for me, it started when, well, basically, I was married really young. I got married at 21, and I was in that relationship for 18 years. And so when I found myself single at that point, I thought, wow, I really have no idea how to go about dating. I never really dated much per se because it was like circle of friends in high school, and that's how I met my ex-husband. And so I was really just at a loss of how do people go about dating, right? And, I started talking to my friends and trying to figure it out. And it seemed like, well, dating apps were just kind of what everyone was doing. And so I thought, well, gosh, I better give that a try. That's what everyone is doing. So let's see what this is all about. And so I did. I gave it a shot, but I just found them really exhausting. I found this like casual swipe culture where it does not encourage real, true, authentic connection. And I just had a really, really hard time meeting people, getting anyone of any high caliber, anyone who was really serious about having a serious relationship. It just seems so casual to me. And so that's where my coaching program was born, out of this need. I felt like there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way to approach dating and men and relationships. Like there's just, these apps aren't doing it for me. And I know a lot of other people too who weren't having any luck. So I created a better way.
That is awesome, and I can't wait to find out all about that. I am a second time married person, and I feel that when I was in my first relationship, I married young, but I was with my first, like my childhood love. So we kind of grew together. We kind of grew up, knowing and liking and learning about the world as it was. And I think it was a huge shock to have suddenly reached a point where we realized we're not right for each other anymore. And I think when that relationship ended, it was almost like, oh my gosh, because we'd, built our whole world around what we'd learned and what we'd grown together, music, everything. And we almost became like almost brother and sister, like the left and the right arm. So I remember experiencing this situation where when, the relationship ended, I felt like my right arm had been cut off. It was really bad. Have you got any like tips and tricks for, people out there that they can understand when they are ready? Because I mean, let's face it, a lot of the elements of, disastrous relationships, not that that was a disaster, but it was just the way things played out, and it was obviously meant to be because we had 3 children and everything else. But, when is the right time? Like when you're meeting that right person, like what kind of status do you need to be in? Do you need to make sure that you've let go of the past and the previous relationships and some of those old stories?
Yeah, Terry, this is a really great question because I think a lot of us, we don't grow up with really great, healthy examples of what it's like to be in a healthy relationship and what that really means. And so a lot of the times we do attract these partners from old wounding, core childhood traumas. So I do think there is a certain amount of awareness around this and what that looks like for everyone. And having done some healing work around all this so that we are attracting from a place of love and joy and not from a place of trauma. And that's the tricky thing when you get into a new relationship because emotions are so high and the chemicals are running and the endorphins and everything, and you feel so good. And it can be really hard to see through all those emotions and really stop and check yourself and say, wait a minute, is this person really in alignment with me and what I need and what I want? So it can be really difficult because we get caught up in the love bombing, really, where, you have someone you just met and maybe they're already showering you with gifts and affection and saying, I love you and talking about your future. And it feels so good to be chosen and to be in that space with that person. But again, we get clouded by our emotions and these chemicals, and really having that awareness of, is this person right for me? Taking a step back, and also just time. I mean, time spent with people will bring out the true nature of the person in the relationship, right? So just really spending time with them without also getting super attached. And that's kind of what I think is missing around dating is, I don't know, nowadays sometimes it seems like people either just they're really, really casual, or all of a sudden they want to jump into being in a relationship, and there's not this middle ground of, wait a minute, let me get to know you. Let's actually sit down and have a conversation and talk about things and not go get drunk and not go out to just dinner and drinks. Like, let's sit and have coffee and talk and do that with a couple of different people and really see where that alignment is before you just kind of blindly jump into a relationship without really knowing the person, without having examined your past, and really trying to set these emotions aside and think a little bit more logically and rationally about, is this person a good fit for me? And, what does that even mean? Get clarity around what I want may not be what you want, may not be what your friend wants. Like everything is going to look different for everyone. So getting a lot of clarity too about what that means for you. What does an aligned relationship look for you? What does that mean for you?
That's incredible. In fact, I was talking to my daughter who's just broken up in her relationship. She wasn't married, but she really built her dreams. I think it was the childhood fairy tale, and it seemed like the perfect couple. And she used to always say to me, "Mum, I'm going to live with the person that I marry," which I totally agree. I'm not that old fashioned. I'm not that old where, I would have it any other way. And they say that living with each other or even traveling is enough to hold that time. But it's interesting because I was having this conversation with her about, the difference between infatuation and reality. Like, when you can get infatuated, I remember that feeling, and it feels great because it's so exciting. It's like all the endorphins, and quite often it can be sexual chemistry, but also a lot of the time it can be codependent chemistry as well. So if there's something that we still need to learn and we haven't learned from it yet, we know, Bethany, don't we, from what we do, that the universe will keep sending us the lessons until we learn, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So how do we differentiate between, an infatuation like heart patter, that where this person's fulfilling a codependency that's within us, that's still longing to learn, from something of reality? Do you have any kind of insight on how a person can really know the difference?
Yeah, I do. And that brings up a really good point, and something I was really focused on and learning about when I was healing myself and addressing trauma, and the fact that, the body keeps the score and trauma is stored in the body. And until we work to release that, that is partly why we attract the partners we do. And the whole notion of butterflies, when you get butterflies in your stomach, when you feel excited to see someone, that's actually not a good sign. And that kind of blew my mind when I heard that, because I was like, whoa, wait a minute, back up. Like, doesn't that mean that you're excited to see someone? And actually, butterflies can be a sign of your nervous system giving you an alert and a red flag and saying, hey, wait a minute here. They're giving you butterflies because your body's actually saying, red flag, wait, back up. Like, this person actually isn't going to be good for you. But until you realize that, you're going to think, oh, this is chemistry. This is love. This feels really good. This is a good sign. But a lot of the times it's actually a red flag. Our bodies hold a lot of wisdom. And so that's one actually really easy way when you're getting butterflies around someone, to stop and take a step back and think, what is my body trying to tell me around these butterflies? Is this a good thing? Or could this be, my trauma, my nervous system actually trying to give me a message? So slowing down, listening to our bodies, and being able to have an open mind and even accept something like that.
Oh my gosh, that is powerful. Gosh, I needed to have you when I was like, the amount of heart racing elements.
Yeah.
And when I think back to those heart racing butterflies that I had, some tragic relationships. And I think to myself, God only knows what I was thinking when I would be like dating. And I did say this on another podcast a long time ago. And it was that I felt like I was always attracted, like before the person I married, I was always attracted to the bad boy. I wanted that person that was a challenge. And I wondered why on earth, when I look back, was I attracted to that person who had nothing in common with me, really. There was no sense of, if we had sat down and talked about our dreams and our values. I mean, let's face it, people might go along with it and go, yeah, and agree just for the sake of winning you over. But there was nothing. And when I look back, you know what I did discover, Bethany? There was a purpose for, some of the most ridiculous people that I did choose to spend some time with. And the reason was that I had an undergirding subconscious desire to change them.
Mm-hmm.
And there was
Yep.
that element, there was that gift in me, and my gift apparently was far greater than obviously a love interest. But now that you say it, like I remember in my marriage, going through my marriage, because we were quite unhappy in the first one. And, but as time went on, I think we recognized that we were just two entirely different people, but we were like brother and sister. And, that care factor is always going to be there, but it busted up, and it was pretty yuck in the first, obviously, in the first years. But leading through some of those trials, I remember falling for someone and actually feeling this incredible chemistry of those butterfly feelings and that excitement. And, they do say, because you brought up about the nervous system and how trauma and the nervous system play a really big role, right? And when I think back now, having spoken with you, I recognize that the excitement that was there when I would see this person was actually, that it was a trauma response as well, because the way the subconscious works, right, as you know, it doesn't know the difference between fantasy or reality, right or
Yes.
wrong, excitement or nervousness.
Mm-hmm.
So, and so it's really interesting that you say it's a red flag, because I think if I had have known that, I would have made some pretty different decisions. But I'm going to flip the question now, because, there's a lot of ladies that I know that are single, and I know that they'll love to hear this podcast, and I'll certainly send it to them. And they seem to be struggling to find the right person. But you know what? I'm almost of the opinion that they're looking too hard, right? And it's almost like a dog that can smell fear or desperation. That kind of element. And, it's almost like they're scaring the man off, because they're on the hunt. So no man really wants to be hunted, right? But then when I've really spoken, I've heard this time and time again, and I'm not a relationship. This is not my portfolio. This is not my niche as it is yours, Bethany. So, when they talk to me about things like, Terry, there seems to be a shortage of men out there, or, it's just a struggle to find the right one, or they'll say that they met that person and then they'll either get hurt or they'll find themselves in that similar situation. And I guess it flips over to the man as well, because there are some men out there that I know can relate to this as well. But what's your stance on the way to meet a person for a woman who is perhaps struggling? And is there a certain energy? Is there a certain, strategy without making it all logistical, or a certain way for them, for that person to really find that soulmate?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I do hear what you're saying about almost acting out of desperation and struggle, because it actually sometimes comes down to, the masculine and feminine energies, right? When we're in our feminine, we are more concerned with being rather than doing, whereas the masculine is supposed to be doing all the doing. And so really, biologically speaking, it does kind of come down to like the male is really supposed to be the one who is out pursuing, finding the woman, taking the lead. He is the one who is supposed to be taking charge and leading the way. And as women, we are supposed to be, not necessarily submissive, but just able to relax more into that feminine space and let go a little bit. I mean, how many times have you probably heard a lot of people say it happened when I least expected it, right? Meeting their soulmate, their person. It does. It's so true. It happens when you least expect it because when you're in that relaxed space of just being able to let go and kind of give it up to the universe and say, you know what? I'm putting it out to the universe. This is my soulmate. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I want. I'm going to put it out there, but then I'm going to let it go. And I'm not going to have attachment to when it happens, where it happens, how it happens. I don't have to know how it's going to happen or where I'm going to meet this person. I'm just going to have some faith in the universe or a God of your choosing, whatever that means to you, having faith that the universe can bring that person to you. And then sitting back and letting go and relaxing and focusing more on yourself and being the person you want to date. Focus on yourself and becoming the person you want to date and everything that you need to do to heal and change. And then you start attracting those people into your life. That's how it happened for me when I really worked to heal myself, let go of my trauma, work through my stuff. And then I stopped. I stopped the apps. I deleted the apps. I said, you know what? I'm stopping dating. I'm taking a break. I'm just going to let it go. And then when I least expected it, that's exactly when it happened because I let go. I was relaxing. I was in my feminine. I was just really focused on myself, not worried about the man. And boom, that's when he showed up in my life.
Wow, that is amazing. And it goes for everything. It's almost like a universal law because, what you've just described, Bethany, is, really a universal law about putting out your vision. So it sounds like, if I was paraphrasing what you just said, create that vision for your soulmate and become the lover you want to attract and become the person that is going to attract your ideal soulmate. And then kind of like let it go out and dance and play and just dance in that playful energy. And that actually reminds me, I know I'm referring back to my past, and I suppose that's what a lot of people, when they listen to this, Bethany, they're going to be kind of going, oh yeah, that's me, and then it's a case of them being able to go, right, I really need to move forward here. What's the best way that I can just not only hear Bethany's great, these amazing, it's almost like the science of, the law of attraction, of attracting my soulmate, so that it's done with ease, flow, and grace. But, I love how you've really talked about being in the feminine energy, because that goes for all of our dreams and desires. It's like that law of detachment and that law of letting go. And in that moment where you release and you let go, and then you go, having fun and you're doing your own life, and then voila. So tell me about your partnership and, how did you find each other?
Yeah. I love to tell this story. It's a great story. It just makes me excited when I think about it. Because again, it was like, I couldn't make this up. I wasn't looking for it. It just happened when it happened. It was a beautiful sunny summer day. And I was feeling kind of low because I had just found out that my latest ex-boyfriend had a new girlfriend. And even though I was over him and I didn't want him back, it still kind of always stings a little bit, just knowing that, that person has moved on and I'm still single and woe is me, and was feeling sorry for myself. And I said, you know what? I need to just get out of this headspace. I need to go down to the river. There's a river really close to my house, and that's like my healing spot. I go there to do my energy work, to do my healing, to just tap into the spiritual side, and it just completely shifts my mood and my emotions. So I was actually like sitting in the middle of the river, kind of meditating, and I was just sitting there crying in the river and doing my thing. And then all of a sudden this red sparkle caught my eye, and I looked down in the river and I went to pick it up, and it was a rock with a heart painted on it, a red heart painted on the rock, like a child had painted the rock and left it there. And I picked it up and I just started crying, and I was just like, oh my God, this is my sign from the universe. The universe is telling me, like, I've got your back. Love is on its way. Like, you are held, you are safe. Just don't even worry about it. Like, that rock, just finding that rock, it was just felt like this really special sign to me. So I thought, okay, like, my work here is done. I was feeling better just finding that rock. I felt like I cleared everything out, packed up, and I'm getting ready to leave the river. And I wasn't dressed very nice. I had been crying. My hair was up in a ponytail. I was like, whatever, I didn't really care. And right at that moment, as I'm leaving the river, I run into an old friend of mine, a neighbor that I hadn't seen in over a year. And we say hi and start chatting. And then standing next to him is this like beautiful Greek god of a man. And he was just standing there with my friend. And sure enough, this is my partner that I'm still with to this day. We met through our mutual friends, and we met right there on the river. We started having a conversation, and we just connected right away. And long story short, he ended up, this is a good example here. Like, I did not pursue him. I met him. I was interested, but I thought, in the back of my head, I was like, oh, he probably has a girlfriend, right? But I thought, you know what, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And sure enough, like a week later, he got my phone number from our mutual friend. He called me. I let him pursue me. I let him know I was interested. I was direct and said, hey, I really like you and I'm single. I would love to go on a date, or whatever it was that I said. I let him know I was direct. But at the same time, I wasn't pursuing him. I wasn't desperate. I really let him pursue me. And we had our first date, and it was magical. We sat and talked for like 3 hours, and it felt like 5 minutes. And it just really felt so special. That rock was a sign from the universe, and bam, there he was. We met through a mutual friend, which is always kind of cool to just meet someone in your network. There's almost that like automatic level of trust that was already there. Like, oh, he knows my friend. I should be able to trust this guy. And yeah, that's my story.
Oh my gosh, that is so incredible. I mean, that's like a movie. You could,
Right?
you could create a movie, on that. In fact, I would even dress it up and be really playful, because I was always a little bit of a goat actress. I'd call myself a goat actress. I love to do this stagey stuff. I actually felt when I was growing up that I felt more alive and more myself when I was acting and on the stage. One might say, well, why aren't I an actor then? But I bring it into my stories and my reels, Bethany, and I was just seeing this movie of you, sitting in that, like, just in that sadness and despair with your hair up, and then finding this rock with a red heart on it. Like, if that's not a sign from the universe, what is, right? And then just the way the whole thing, just unravels, right to where, you meet your next door neighbor, and you've got third party credibility. So you've got the whole, yes, I know this person. This is a trusting and trustworthy person. So it's like a relationship just designed in heaven. And furthermore, they say that women give the green light, even when they're not saying so. Like, I think there's a difference between a woman who's hunting the man and really pursuing it, to someone who's really standing in their own truth and their own confidence and being like really direct. And I think men like that, the honesty of it,
yes,
not the desperation. So it's almost like an equation, a mathematical equation or a science equation of, what really brings those transmitters. And it was, interesting in my own, when I met my now husband, because I met him through his daughter. And it was very strange, because I remember feeling like, you're sort of spending time with them. But I remember asking myself this question: why do I feel so comfortable with him? And, there was none of that pitter-patter infatuation, going back to that part of the conversation, But did you find perhaps the demon that had attracted you into having that kind of, I suppose, that space of time where, whatever happened in your initial relationship obviously bared such a big wound on your soul that it created you to become passionate about what you're doing now for other women. Can you tell me what that was like, what you were going through after you split up, and what were some of the things that you were facing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to just back up a little bit and explain just a little bit about so that initial relationship that I talked about, that was, I was married to basically my high school sweetheart, in it for 18 years. That ended, and I chose to end that because I felt the relationship was over, and it was really my choosing, and I felt really liberated with that decision. And that one wasn't actually, there was a lot of wounding and trauma, but what really, really got me was the relationship right after that, because I did not give myself time to heal. I jumped into a relationship way too quickly with just a mutual friend who, looking back, I was like, why did I even date him? Like, we really didn't have interest or much in common. I don't even know why I got involved, but I did. And it was a real trauma bond. And there was so much trauma in that relationship. And I knew he was wrong for me. And yet I had the hardest time breaking it off. We were on and off, probably 3 times. And I struggled so much with, why am I staying with this person who's not giving me what I want, who isn't good for me? But why can't I break up with him? Like, why is it so hard? And so that was really the wounding and the trauma that really hurt so bad. I was so depressed and I felt so low. And looking back now, I think I just had this really big fear of being alone. Like, I have really never been alone. What does that mean now for my future? And I have a son here, and how do I take care of him without that help, without the family? I didn't have any family out here. So I felt really alone. And then when I started really digging deep and doing the work and working with a coach and a healer and digging deep, I found, to my surprise, a real lack of self-worth. It was like I was self-sabotaging myself because I did not believe that I was worthy of having a better relationship. And part of that had to do with being with a narcissist and being gaslit, and not just, not believing. And then, of course, childhood wounds come into play there too. And I really want to point out the difference between self-confidence and self-worth, because it was surprised me when I really got down to the self-worth part of it, because I thought, well, I actually, like, I like myself. I'm confident in my job and what I do. And I know I'm a good mom, and I'm a good person. But self-worth stems from, like, valuing yourself. You are worthy, just as you are worthy to exist because you are here. And I never really got that validation from childhood. And so I carried that core trauma wound with me throughout all my relationships. And it was magnified in that last trauma bonding relationship, because I was self-sabotaging. I was just staying out of a fear and an insecurity deep down that I didn't deserve any better. And so when I really worked to, one, identify those wounds, like, you can't heal what you don't know. You really have to bring awareness around it. And that's when working with a coach is so powerful, because you tell yourself stories, you have these things running in your head. I'm not good enough. No one's going to love me. Now I have this baggage. I'm broken. What's wrong with me? I can't believe I got divorced. All of that running through your head. So you need someone to help you really see that, like, no, these stories, they're just stories. They're not true. They're not based in reality. It's the trauma part talking, and you need someone to help you really work through that.
That's very, very powerful, actually. Yeah, wow. So in a way, that traumatic situation, that relationship you had in the middle where, you know, that was a friend, and then you got kind of mixed up with each other in that way. And of course, they say that a woman is much more vulnerable too, having come out of something. So it doesn't take much for that person to be that right person, so to speak. And but I can see the gift in that though, because maybe for you, that relationship was the absolute kind of pivot of you rising, getting that coach and recognizing exactly what you needed to learn and all about your childhood wounds and all of the elements that led you to where you were. So perhaps you can enlighten us about what would you say to that woman out there listening right now? What would you tell her if you had 3 elements you could share? What would be the 3 elements you would share?
Yeah, the first would be you're not broken. You're not broken, and you're not your trauma, and you can heal. You are worthy. You're worthy of investing in yourself and taking the time to heal your wounds and your trauma. You're not broken. You're worthy, and you deserve love and happiness. I think a lot of times as women, we don't feel worthy of receiving too. Sometimes we have a hard time receiving.
Hey, Bethany, somehow you're not very clear. Like it sounds, the sound is really muffled. I'm just wondering if you have to adjust something on your side.
Is that any better?
No, unfortunately not. And just when you're dropping those gold nuggets.
I don't know what happened. I haven't done anything differently. Let me turn